Hello and welcome back to Thacker Sunday Hangover with me, James Thacker. I hope you're well. Today we are joined by one of my very good friends in Andy Painter. Andy, hello.
Hello, Thax. How are you?
I'm very well. I've had a good week. How are you?
I'm all right, buddy. It's been a
Good.
good week. Weather's been terrible, but
Oh, it has. Yeah, the sun actually needs to grow some confidence and come out because I'm not having it. I'm not having the fact that it's mid-May and I have to play rugby tomorrow in the pouring rain, it would seem.
so rugby's back tomorrow. That's big.
Yes, mate. Oh, mate, I'm absolutely buzzing. So the team got announced on Wednesday. What the schedule or how they're doing it is that they've got two teams for each half, so that we're giving enough people a run out,
Nice.
and obviously all abiding by COVID restrictions, which apparently includes not being able to shower after the game, which
Oh
I'm not
God.
that happy about, and I'm sure the person that will is in the car with me on the way home is not going to be that happy about either. But no, I'm just buzzing for it to be back at all, mate. To be honest, it's even though there's no scrums and there's no mauls from the line out, which is a little bit artificial, the fact that it's just back at all is
So is
unreal.
this
So
is this competitive or is this
it's friendly stuff.
okay?
Yeah, so we're playing against Bury St Edmunds, who are a National 2 South team, I believe,
Nice.
which is in the league below us. So yeah, mate, it's going to be good. I'm buzzing, but yeah, and was nursing a slight shoulder knock this week after getting back into full contact, but it feels strong. Feels like it's all good going into tomorrow. So yeah, feeling good, feeling positive. How's your week been then, buddy?
It's good, as you know. Started a new job, so it's all fun and games in the painter household. Everything's new, so yeah, had a lot of fun with work. And then I'm walking the Malvern Hills tomorrow with a couple of the boys. We're getting out for a
Yeah,
walk.
they were saying
Yeah, as
actually.
we did last weekend with you. So
Yeah. Was that last weekend or was it two? I can't even
oh, it was
remember,
two
mate.
weekends ago, actually,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
time is going so quickly. But yeah, it was actually so good, and I spoke about it on the podcast about how brilliant it is to get out there because you've got massively into your hiking recently, haven't you? And you've just felt like it's been such a it's a revelation because I mean
Oh,
beforehand.
massively.
Before the pandemic, no one was going on massive walks, like even walking at all. But because that's what we kind of got forced into, because that was the only thing we can do in terms of exercise, you started picking up on it loads, didn't you?
Yeah, huge. I mean, we try and do, I mean, 5 miles a day throughout the week. And then we'll try and get into something a bit bigger, probably 10, 12 miles at a weekend. But yeah, just a really easy way to obviously COVID safe, be able to go around with a couple of your mates, just talk about everything that's going on in life, like decompress from the week. You're also getting your exercise, so you're keeping on top of things. I think it was really hard, wasn't it? Right? There was a time when probably weren't keeping on top of things mentally and physically as well as we should have in the last year. So that opportunity just to get out, get some fresh air. And I think I've kind of fallen in love with. I mean, we live in a part of the Midlands which isn't particularly beautiful, but it's amazing what you can kind of find sort of 20, 30 minutes from your door.
Yeah,
So it's
it does make me laugh how when you talk about the Midlands and you're walking. So funny how you describe the place that you're from. It does make me chuckle.
it's terrible.
You can
But
say it.
can I say where I'm from?
Yeah, well, you can
I
say
don't
it.
want to say it
I
now. You
mean,
say it's terrible.
if you're worried about the backlash from those of Nuneaton, then you don't have to. You don't have to
I just
say.
think it's quite industrial around here, and I kind of maybe tarred Warwickshire with the same brush that it was all going to be terrible post-war, architecturally horrid. And actually, I mean, we've been Kenilworth, sort of Warwick, Leamington. So there's some areas in South Warwickshire that are really beautiful.
Yeah,
And you do forget, and I think especially with like holidays and stuff like that, we've got this tendency to just jump on a plane and go somewhere warm, and not worry about being at home for a couple of weeks. But when you're kind of forced to experience a little bit more what's on the back door, I went to Cheddar Gorge last weekend actually, and it was a place that I would absolutely never go.
yeah,
Definitely not on the bucket list. But actually, when you're kind of made to experience things on your back door a little bit more, oh, it's not really on my back door; it's 2 hours away. But you kind of, yeah, you find some nice spots, and you kind of realise that actually it's a pretty cool country, and yeah, there's some nice stuff around.
a glowing advertisement for walking in Warwickshire.
I should get a
Recommendation.
National Trust. If anyone from the National Trust is listening and they want to give me a free membership, you'd save me about £7 a week. So get in touch.
No, like you say though, because I know I've spoken to you about the holidays that I've been on in the last 12 months, and I went to the Cotswolds with Ziggy last year. That was
Mm,
somewhere that I never previously would even think to go, but that was unbelievable. Like, that's so pretty, and it was trips like that that realise, why they say England is the green and pleasant land in Jerusalem, because it just genuinely was one of the most spectacular places, and some of the quaint little villages and towns that you drive through, it's beautiful. And then obviously I went up to do the North Coast 500 with the boys last
yeah,
September, and again, just one of the most scenic, ridiculous routes I'm probably ever likely to do in my lifetime. I'm definitely going to do it again. And I know you're planning on going to Scotland soon and seeing old Brody Daly, who hopefully will be listening as a big fan of the pod. So hi, Brody, just a little shout out. But you're planning on going on camping soon, right?
yeah. I'm doing a similar thing to you, doing parts of the 500, but yeah, primarily on the coast. So yeah, really looking forward to doing that. And as we're saying, like something that you would never think to do. In a normal set of circumstances, definitely wouldn't have been thinking I would spending my summer holiday in Scotland. But given the opportunity, I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful, and hopefully we get some good weather. And I think it's important that now things are opening up. I think we're going to hear a lot about some of these countries that have got, sort of tourism-led economies and the way that they've suffered over the last couple of years. And I think it's important for us to remember some of the seaside towns, and some of the towns and cities in the UK that are heavily dependent on tourism. So, if when people are thinking about where they're going to go on holiday this year, and all the added expense of COVID tests and things like that, I mean, weather dependent, nothing better than putting some money back into the UK, right? And
Yeah,
going and helping
definitely.
out something a little bit closer to home.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I think local is where we need to. I mean, not just with holidays, but wider society. I think we need to look at local being our future, and going forward, because realistically, that that's going to be the way, especially from an environmental point of view, but also just being able to support local economies.
Definitely.
That's definitely it. But I think as we open up the borders a bit more and people come in, I mean, as much as we're going to be looking to go and experience other countries, which again shouldn't be that frowned upon, because we need to, as a people, we need to experience different cultures, and you need to go and learn and experience different countries. But other people will be coming in as well, because England is still a really popular holiday destination, not just for English people looking to go to the seaside, but so
Mm,
many people want to come in and visit England for all its merits. So we should see an influx of tourism coming soon, which should help prop up the economy a little bit more. But you are right in that we need to probably think of England first. And
definitely.
even if it's to go for a long weekend somewhere, go support the local industries that have been, I think, suffering a little bit during this time. I think you're right in saying that.
And I think, didn't
Um,
I try and prospect you for an Israeli holiday? Were we not going to look at Tel Aviv?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
given what's been going on recently, mate,
yeah,
that's we'll probably have to press pause on that one.
probably a little
Considering
premature of me there. Yeah,
the tensions going. You are right, because Tel Aviv looks like an
looks
absolutely
stunning.
beautiful,
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful place, and it's just a shame what's going on over there at the moment. But without trying to getting into a deep political conversation, we'll probably skirt around that issue. Although it's, well, to be honest, I would like to comment on it further. I don't think at this present moment in time I'm as educated as I'd like to be able to actually give an opinion. So I'm not going
Absolutely.
to yet. So so that's that. So obviously, new job as well. I didn't know how much you wanted to talk about it, but obviously, given the last 12 months and the chaos of the job market, and also just jobs in general, having to
Mm,
work from home, the scale of, or I suppose the nature to our work has changed dramatically. And then obviously you've ended up changing jobs at the turn of the year,
yeah.
due to circumstance. I don't know whether you wanted to go into it, but I think it'd be good to talk about, because it's, I think, something that lots of people are going through, but it's actually bred something quite positive for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how deep we want to go into this, but obviously we met each other through work. we did an internship together. Probably what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago now, and then we
Yeah,
we came
gosh,
back and
quickly.
really bonded. I think over the amount of time we spent together as grads and working in the same team, and our whole life was sort of hitting the road. Right, we were out and about, we were in front of people. Spent a lot of time in the car, a lot of time traveling in between customer meetings. So yeah, I think I remember, God, probably like 18 months ago now, however long it was, being in Sheffield. I think when things first started coming through about COVID, with one of our mates actually, Dom, in a customer meeting, and I remember kind of making some flippant comments around how this was going to be a month, a couple of months, and we'd be back. And yeah, I mean, lo and behold, I think it was probably 12 months, right?
Yep.
Well, it's been over 12 months
No,
now.
12 months now, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. So obviously had the last 12 months, and our working situation completely changed. We were working from home during that time, which was a real culture shock for me. I think we've spoken about this before, but part of the job that I really loved that we did was that ability to get out and see people and be in a different place each day, and that evolution of it, and the fact that it was an ever changing landscape really kept it fresh. And I think for a lot of people, probably masks over maybe some things that you don't necessarily like about your job. So yeah, I think that 12 months became quite difficult for me because a lot of the passion that I felt for it and a lot of the positivity that I had for it were kind of taken away. And I was almost left with all the bits that I kind of kept on the back burner deliberately,
Mm, mm,
that weren't, I guess, as fulfilling for me, if that's okay, it's the right way of saying it. And sadly, was made redundant in February. And I don't think it is sadly, actually. I don't know why I said sadly, but I think one thing that probably the speed of life takes away from us sometimes is our perspective. Um,
definitely.
I think I definitely know that some of the conversations we were having at the time, every little thing was definitely getting on top of me and bothering me. And I'd lost a lot of perspective for myself in terms of my own life and what was important to me and what I valued and the way I wanted to conduct myself as a human being. I think I'd kind of lost myself in it. So getting that opportunity to take a break, as we've already said, get into the hiking, do some things for yourself again. Kind of feel the bigger picture of life. Like I hate to say it, it sounds like corporate bullshit. I don't know if we're allowed to swear, but
You can.
we
Fine.
talk about being a little bit more holistic, right? Taking a step back and thinking about a bigger picture. But it's kind of true. I think it takes something like that happening sometimes to allow you to take some time, take a step back, and really understand what's important for you and what makes you happy.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think this like what one thing that the last year has given us is so much time to reflect and actually think about what really resonates with us. What's the most important things to us? Where do we want to be spending our time? And that's something that I've been over the last couple of months. I've been doing a lot of reading and self reflecting. And
mm,
one thing is that I want to make the most of the time each day because we've only got a finite amount of time on the
yeah,
planet. And it's not a. I like that Ricky Gervais puts it as this isn't a dress rehearsal. So, you've only got one time round. So make the most of it while you've got the time. And I think, you know, I think like you say, it wasn't a negative change for you because you managed to get a fresh start somewhere else where you can now go and also it made you I think realize a little bit that a job doesn't define you and that
absolutely.
you are more than your profession, and you can still find immense happiness beyond what you do for a living. So, and then the job is an addition to that, and then so you found somewhere that you really enjoy now, and
Mm,
you've made a really positive start. So I think it was a positive move for you, and I think you've done a really good job in terms of taking that time out, looking after yourself, making sure you're in the right headspace. And then, like we said, a lot of the time when you were looking for the next step, is making sure it was the right one for you. And so far, it seems like that's going well. So it's really
definitely.
good. I mean, every time I'm speaking to you at the minute, it feels like you're in a positive headspace, and that's always good to hear. And I think no doubt that will come from having a bit more balance in life by managing to
Absolutely.
do things like getting out and doing your hiking, and that means that you can go speak to mates, go keep physically active. Your mental well-being is looked after. Your physical well-being goes hand in hand with that.
Mm,
Um, and then once you start kind of ticking off those boxes, you can then start building and growing, and yeah, and
I think
I
it's
think
important to say as well that we're by no way lockdown champions, right? We've both,
Mm,
although we're kind of talking about it now as if we've had some positive experiences that have come through it. I know it definitely affected me seeing people that were doing like body transformations, and we're seemingly having this like amazing time last year, and I definitely wasn't having that time. And although, yeah, we've found the hiking and I'm in a much better place with work, I think it's important just to kind of give some perspective to that and say
no,
it
definitely,
wasn't
yeah.
always like that. And I know it wasn't always like that for you, and we definitely had some ups and downs, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely. I mean, I spoke about that on the podcast. I think on the mental health podcast with Buddy.
mm,
Where I went through that pretty dark time in November, and I think a lot of it does come from one thing that you mentioned is by seeing other people do body transformations, and I think a lot of that would stem from social media, and social media is such a quite destructive tool when it comes to when we were all locked down. That was kind of the only way that we were staying connected with what was happening in the outside world. And when you're seeing people smiling, having a laugh, like look like they're
yeah,
having the best time, when you don't feel like that, you think, oh, then there's something wrong with you, and then that compounds your kind of fears and anxieties, and can can often make you feel worse. So that I mean, it's been a really, really tough time to navigate. But I feel like, I mean, obviously now we're nearly at the end, and I think come Monday we're allowed to meet indoors, and hope then next month, all being well, despite Boris kind of giving us a little bit of a, um, I think fright
reality
yesterday
check,
around
is it,
saying,
or fright?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, in the country, it feels like things will be pretty much back to normal in a month or so's time. So hopefully this will be the only pandemic that we suffer in our lifetime. But the one thing I suppose to take away from it, there's just so many learnings, and I think one of the
absolutely.
biggest one is to make the most of the time where you got it, and to cultivate the relationships that mean the most to you, because, like we said, they can be taken away. And
Yeah,
when it came to it, people like you and Ziggy, like my very close support circle, I relied on you guys when I was feeling crap,
mm,
and you need to put the same amount of effort in as you receive to all your relationships and going forward. Like it's going to be a massively important thing, especially as our social skills will inevitably be, like, as a population, poorer than when we've, like, before lockdown.
I think I could
So
probably do with having worse social skills, to be honest with you.
but so yeah, I think we all just need to come together now, and come, well, when this is all over, come celebrate living, and yeah, just get out there and start making the most of our time. um
Yes.
Beautiful. So, before I introduce the actual topic of today's podcast, I wanted to ask you something that I'm trying to make a segment on this on this podcast, but so far I've only had one person to ask this question. However, as this is the Thacker Sunday Hangover
Mm,
podcast, and on a hangover, one would usually have English breakfast in this country to cure that hangover.
mm.
I want to ask you, what is, if you could take one thing from that English breakfast, if you could only eat one of them, or what's your favourite part of an English breakfast? Obviously, I know you're kind of part-time vegetarian, so that could look a
Yeah.
little bit different in terms of it could be a garden English
I,
breakfast. But
I
yeah,
want to give you something contentious here, right? Because
but
I am a
I wouldn't
part-time,
expect anything less.
I am a part-time vegetarian. I was a full-time vegetarian for a while, um, but I'm not. I'm definitely not a vegetarian anymore. But actually,
Nothing wrong
then
with that, by the way.
yeah, no. I mean, look, each their own. I've definitely done it for reasons that we might talk about a little bit later, I guess, with some of the subject matter. But yeah, I have actually had a couple of fry ups recently. I go with another one of our friends semi regularly to yeah, a little bit of a trendy calf. And I used to always get this big veggie breakfast that had like sweet corn fritters and stuff like that. But the last couple of times I've been has been either pre or post big walk, and I've had a meaty breakfast. And the thing that stood out to me as a thing that I've never seen it anywhere other than on a breakfast or on a fry up is black pudding. So I'm going to be contentious here as an ex-vegetarian and say that the one item that I would take from a fry-up is black pudding, because nowhere else in the world does that piece of food exist.
So your favourite bit of the English breakfast is a black pudding. That's what you're telling me.
I'm telling you that there's never been a meal, any other meal, and someone can maybe, I don't know, you've got active socials. Tell me another meal where black pudding is an ingredient.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a reason for that.
But I had it, and I remember having it as a younger man, and it being like, what the hell is this? And I've had
Yeah.
it recently a couple of times and been like, actually, I get this now. And maybe we've spoken a lot recently, I know, about getting older and how I guess we all just turn into a version of our fathers in some way. But I remember always looking at black pudding,
How could you
thinking,
eat that? And
how could
then,
you eat that?
yeah,
And now it's gone. Matter of seconds, it's done. I'm
it's a
flipping it around the bean juice and it's off. It's
a,
down the
very,
chute.
a proper scrannet, as Ollie Ball would say. Oh, amazing. Okay, so we've had one for toast and one for black pudding. Not at all what I expected, but yeah, I think I quite like it. I quite like this segment. And actually, yeah, again, another question, just off the top of my head. What's your go-to hangover cure?
Oh,
Because there's some quite fruity ones, and you're quite a fruity individual. So I thought
yeah.
you might go for something weird, like you've got a stash of charcoal underneath your bed, and you just rub that on your gums, or something weird, or CBD oil. I know you've experimented with that.
Yeah,
Although
I mean,
can't imagine that being good.
again, no sponsorship currently, obviously, because I don't do anything. I've got no social media. But if someone wants to send me some CBD oil, I'd gladly take it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. But hangovers, probably I like a Bloody Mary with loads of Tabasco, I would say. Like a really
Yeah.
spicy Bloody Mary, which isn't really a hangover cure because, again,
Hair of the dog, though, a little
yeah,
bit.
I think probably the best hangover cure is hair of the dog. Is there another hangover cure that's as effective?
Do you know what? One day in Loughborough, I woke up pretty early doors, and the first thing the bloke stuck in front of me was a Guinness with blackcurrant in it. And I
Okay.
was like, "Are you serious? Like, we literally like ripped the doors off last night. And you're asking me to have an?" He was like, "No, seriously, mate, trust me." And I had one. I was like, "Oh my god!" He was like, "Yeah, I know," and I felt amazing. And I don't know whether that was because like it was this new revelation, but yeah, Guinness Black,
Yeah.
sensational, and yeah, bit of the hair of the dog. Fair play. Right, so onto the topic of today's podcast. Now, it's going to be, I think, quite a controversial one, but I think one that's probably going to prompt quite a lot of debate and conversation. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, I had a bit of a reflection. I'm quite involved in the social media sphere, like you alluded to. I
Yeah.
see a lot of things that are going on, and social media is obviously way, way, way more prevalent amongst our generation in terms of amount of time spent on it. And the things you see there are very weird and sometimes not very wonderful. Um, but there's some things that I kind of have been stewing in my head for a while now. And I think and I look at our generation now. I don't know whether I can bring you into my generation, Painter, because I don't know where the gap is. I don't even know what the one after millennial is. But I look at our generation sometimes and just think, what the fuck? Like, where did we go wrong? Is this seriously what we're putting out into the world now like that's deemed acceptable? And I think there's just a few things, and I mean, I've only written down 4 here, and I
Yeah.
think this podcast might even need a part 2 because there's way more. But I just wanted to take the time to kind of explore some ideas that I've have, and obviously we're quite good at bouncing things off each other. So that's kind of why I wanted you on the podcast, because I know you'll definitely have some opinions on some of the stuff that I've picked out. But yeah, we can kind of, I suppose, pull them apart a little bit. Why these things have come about, and then kind of decide whether it's making society better or worse as a result.
Yeah, well, you've
Sound good?
definitely not invited me for my social media expertise, so it must be for my contentious opinions, which I'm now very worried about. Having revealed both my name and the fact that I'm new in employment, um, to then want to talk to me about contentious topics just seems like a recipe for disaster. But
It's
we'll
fine.
go with it. We'll try
No one knows where you work. It's fine. Just put your LinkedIn on private. It's fine.
it. Let's do it.
So the first one, and probably the most controversial one, is more of a question, but it's: should fat people or those that are grossly kind of overweight, and then we're talking about like morbidly obese
Mm,
and those that are like struggling from a health perspective, should they be encouraged to embrace body positivity just for the sake of feelings and wanting to make everyone feel special, um in the I suppose in the name of social wokeness, or do we as a society need to hold each other more accountable and have more responsibility over sensible weight maintenance?
yeah.
Because and I'll tell you where this original thought came from. Now, like it's important to kind of disclaim I have absolutely nothing against like how anyone wants to live their life. Now, if you're overweight, like I've been overweight, like I wouldn't I'd say I'm like a little bit more towards where I need to be now. Because I've just done like a few diet changes and things like that. But in terms of how anyone wants to look and feel,
Mm,
um, I'm on board to a degree, until like people are literally bedridden. And I've seen like ridiculous things on YouTube where there's like this woman who loves being morbidly obese and bedridden, and this guy's feeding her through a funnel. I'm like, what is that? But I just feel like there's almost like this fear
yeah.
amongst millennials in our generation where if you were to like criticize someone for the way they look in any shape or form, then you're then deemed to be offensive and discriminatory. And we're actually someone who's very, very overweight, like to an unhealthy set, might be seriously putting themselves at risk. And then obviously you've got, from that point of view, once you get to a certain state of overweightness,
Mm.
then you have to think, okay, well, are they going to need hospital? Are they going to
Become a
then,
burden on the state, right?
well, a little bit. And it sounds harsh to say it like that, but that's what I mean. It's like you then because of a result of your actions, which you can control. You can control what you can consume and what you educate yourself on in terms of which food groups will do what to your body, and it's not one food group will do the same thing to everyone's body. By the way, it's
Yeah.
different for everyone, but I think everyone needs to have that level of effort to go and figure out, okay, what diets work for me in terms of what's going to keep me healthy.
Mm.
Now, people can still be overweight and healthy, but I think there's like a limit between like that then tips the scale. Pardon the pun. Um, to then make people unhealthy, and that's what scares me because then people are still being encouraged to love themselves the way they are, and like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that you're fat because as long as you feel sexy, then it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you sent me last night some topics written down, just the topics. And when I saw this, the first thing that sprung to my mind, and this might be completely irrelevant, but I just remember. Do you remember those Dove adverts? I don't know if they still run them. I can't remember the last time I watched adverts, but do you remember
Yeah,
them?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
and that's the first kind of thing that sprung to my mind. And I remember actually watching that and thinking it was actually quite liberating. Um,
Mm.
and I do like when I started looking at this topic, I was thinking you've kind of got to detach what we've just talked about there because it's two very different things in terms of body positivity, and then we sort of we should like shoot down this track of obesity, and it's almost two different things to a sense. Like to an extent, we want people to be happy, and we want people to feel comfortable in their own skin. I think, as we've touched upon, I mean, you're great at social media. There's a lot on social media right now which gives you such an unrealistic way to feel and about yourself and a way to look. Um,
Yeah, I think it's come from the whole movement has come from the fact that society sets unrealistic expectations on what people should look like, and
yeah,
that's usually at the scale of like when you see photos of like Kendall Jenner, who
Mm.
looks like a Barbie doll, and then you see the amount of followers that she's got on Instagram, the amount of impressionable young people who will be literally, and then the problem is because they'll make direct comparisons, and then
Mm.
the logical thing for some people who don't look like that will be to make drastically life altering changes, which
Yeah.
often can be negative in order to get there. And so to make sure that that doesn't happen, the movement then came, well, you don't want to, you shouldn't
Yeah.
want to look like anyone else other than you. You should be absolutely happy in your skin and your body how you look, because you're all beautiful. Like, everyone is beautiful in their own right. But then that was then kind of once those kind of sentiments were being put out into the world, that was kind of then like cast in stone, and that anyone can look any way and it's always
Yeah.
fine. And that's the problem that I've got, in that, like, yes, absolutely, like, be happy, but there has to be a limit, where
Has to
it's
be a
like, if
point.
you are eating so much where your heart can't take it anymore, or if you're literally you're wheezing getting up and down the stairs, it's like, how happy are you actually? Because as much as you can think that you are happy because you accepted the way you look, it's
Mm.
like, well, but how happy are you really with the lifestyle that you've kind of chosen for yourself? And it is, again, like I said, it's something that I think, to a degree, and I'm going to pick this apart in a minute, but to a degree it's what you can choose, right? Because you can choose what you put in your body.
Yeah. I think I briefly googled this, and I didn't know this before. Someone can debunk me if it's not true, but from what I could see, most stats are calling out sort of like 1 in 4 adults in the UK is obese, and
Wow.
62% of adults in the UK, or 60 odd percent, are overweight. And I was that kind of took me aback, because I maybe didn't think this was as serious a problem as it is. And I think for me, I mean, would you class yourself? I know if we, I mean, I know we've moved away from like BMI and stuff like that, but I mean, you've always been a big guy, but you're a big guy with a purpose, right? You've always had sport behind you. You're
Yeah.
incredibly big framed. Does that? How many
This is
people?
it.
Yeah. What metrics are we using to quantify some of this stuff? That someone such as yourself, who is a really big frame, but plays a lot of rugby, is fit, you would be considered overweight. So I
Yeah.
was looking at those stats thinking, is this what it seems really?
It's not black and white, and this is the
No.
thing. I was just listening to a really good podcast, Behind the Play, with a guy called Ollie Warren Garcia, who I've done a podcast with. Um, but he had a guy on there called Graham Phillips, and he was like an ex pharmacy. I think he worked in pharmacy before. But he was saying that how little knowledge the medical industry have about lifestyle issues, and how intrinsically linked they are. And I think the problem is, so beforehand, and I remember, I think I might have mentioned this story before, but do you remember We Fit?
Yeah.
And on there they had the scales, and they'd like weigh you, and then they'd tell you, like, according to your height, what your BMI was. And always, compared to my cousins and my brothers who were stick thin, they were always like ideal, and I was always overweight. But I was playing like a high level of rugby and like
Yeah.
athletic at the time, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I don't feel overweight. So the thing is, it's all contextual, because your body will do the things that you want it to do. And um, I don't believe in, to be honest, I don't believe in body mass index. I don't believe that scales should also dictate how healthy we are, because every
Absolutely.
single person is different. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean as well that athletes and people who are heavier um, are healthy either, because that was also another thing that was discussed on that podcast, is that athletes push themselves and eat the things and ingest the things that will get the best performance out of their body in the short
Yeah.
term. But long term, that might be completely fucking your body up. So it
Absolutely.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're the healthiest either. So I think when it comes to those national statistics around who's overweight and who's obese, I
Mm.
think they have to be taken with a pinch of salt, because that can mean so many different things. I think what needs to happen more is around and things to take into consideration is more like, okay, your appearance. Are you happy with how you look? Um, I think once you've come to some self acceptance and you're healthy, then that's perfect. Like you
Do you
don't
think
need
though?
to look.
Here's one for you then. So rather than everyone should love themselves and we love ourselves, at a certain point, should you love yourself enough to give a fuck? Like, do you know what
Well,
I mean? Is that a bit
yeah,
brash? But
well, yeah. I understand that point, but it's
do you know
like
what I mean?
where yeah. I suppose it's where you draw that line, and again, you can't draw a line for every single person because health looks like lots of different things
No,
for
but
lots of people.
if we talk about positivity and loving ourselves and feeling comfortable within ourselves and comfortable who we are, but you can almost separate that argument around obesity and around people being overweight is that I feel empowered, I feel in love with myself, I understand that my body is the way it is, I understand that I'm not going to be this model, this perfect figure, but actually I'm embracing myself and I love myself enough to go out and make changes that are going to make a meaningful difference to my fitness level or my body type, not with a view to look like a Kendall Jenner, but just with a view that you're in a good positive space and you can do something and get an output from that which is going to benefit you long term. It's going to make you healthier, you're going to live longer, you're going to feel better, you're going to have more energy. um,
I think that mentality needs to come in where people are in a place now where they're unhealthy and they need to make life altering decisions. Otherwise, that's going to fundamentally cut years off their life, or they're not going to live a happy and utilized life. And
mm,
also, you have to think about, and obviously, this is something I mentioned, like in the actual framing of the question. Do we have a duty to each other to keep on top of our fitness so that we are not draining you know NHS resources
yeah,
for things that are fundamentally in our control. There are so many diseases and things that are completely out of our control. Things like broken bones, things like accidents
yeah,
that happen. So many things out of our control that I feel fundamentally that should be what the National Health Service is for things that are widely outside of our control. But also I suppose, I mean, this is going into a different conversation, and that needs a lot more explaining. But when it comes to this issue, that it is way more under your control. Having said that, I was speaking to my brother about this yesterday. The the education factor comes into it massively
yeah,
because people. So I don't know the demographics of where there is a larger proportion of people who are in bad health or have the largest obesity crisis. But I'm sure there is a strong correlation between those where the education system is not particularly strong and also where nutrition education is not at hand, and also there being health crises
yeah.
because it's huge. And I think is and then it's
It's
like
also really expensive to eat healthy.
it can,
Just
well, it can be. I unfortunately there is the case where, and it made me despair when I saw this. But at fast food restaurants, it was like bottles of water being more expensive than fizzy drinks. Like that for me is just like it shows a massive hole in society as to why on earth is water like
yeah,
something that we are made up of and is like a fundamental thing that we need. Why is that more expensive to get a hold of than a fizzy drink which is actually toxic for our body?
yeah.
Crazy. So I feel like um, the I suppose the issue around weight and people being super unhealthy in that respect also is intrinsically linked with education. And so in order to overcome this problem, there needs to be a mass widespread of education for people and for a way to engage those who aren't informed but are making bad decisions around their health and their weight, and their nutrition
Didn't Jamie
choices.
Oliver do this?
Oh, yeah, you know what? He did. I mean, obviously, we're all aware of like the things that he tried to impose, especially in schools, and taking away things like turkey Twizzlers and things like that. I think his he was on the right lines for the time, right? But the problem is that he started to like try shunning food groups, but that and trying to like say, oh, if you eat this, then you will get fat. Like the problem is with that is that not everyone's the same, and food doesn't affect us all the same. And also, at the end of the day, turkey Twizzlers, as much as they don't carry much nutritional benefit, at the end of the day, they just have it's just calories.
Yeah,
So whether you eat, I saw something interesting the other day: avocado on brown toast compared to Nutella on white toast. Avocado on brown toast has more calories.
yeah,
So if you eat enough of that, you will gain weight, and then
yeah,
you could get to the point. As much as there may be more nutritional value in that, so he tried to maybe go about it the wrong way, but I think that conversation was very ahead of his time. But there has not been like too much of a widespread campaign to go and educate people on how to eat sustainably on a budget and to make that a positive, sustainable change. And there's so much onus on these dietitians, on PTs. You see people. I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but PTs and nutritionists online, and everyone's telling you a million and one things. And I'm sure people, because there's so much information saturation now in the market, people won't know where to look because there's so much information out there. You're like, well, what do I even believe?
yeah.
So there does need to be, how we go about that. I don't even know.
I think, I mean, Joe Wick had some success. I didn't watch any of that stuff, but I remember seeing, glancing the paper, seeing he had some really good success over lockdown with some of those workouts and that. I think it probably stems into another problem again around. I mean, as a kid, I don't think I could ever exercise as much as I did as a child. Like, we were always out, we were running about, we were playing football, we were on bikes. Don't get that anymore. I think society's moved on, society's changed. So I think what we're talking about in terms of, you know, education with children, like, children aren't necessarily the problem here. I think as a child, you're probably more likely to be burning the calories that your input to output is probably going to be pretty
Mm,
good.
mm.
It's what happens post education and when people go into, specifically in low income, where they just fall back on those kind of typical beige foods, right? The stuff that you can get that freezes, that, takes 20 minutes in the oven. And then they're working all the time, so they're maybe not getting the same amount of exercise. Your metabolism will naturally slow as you age. And that's probably where these people generally, I think, maybe find themselves in a bit of a deeper situation. Is probably the kind of age we're getting towards now. I'm definitely noticing a difference in my body now, where I can't just sit and drink everything that I want or eat everything that I want. I have got to be conscious about some of the decisions I'm making because I can see the effects and the change it's having on me. Whereas as a younger man, um, largely just did what I wanted and didn't feel any
The-
consequence.
But are you so when you're noticing that though, you're in a way consciously looking for it because you're thinking that you're it's not like you think I can be any size
Mm.
and that's fine. Because this is the original issue. It's like some people are thinking I'm just going to put whatever I want into my body because no matter how I look, as long as I love myself, then that's fine.
But I don't think it's genuine body positivity. I think the kind of body positivity we're talking about now is just people using it almost as a fallback, right? As an excuse, as a reason not to get criticised. Is that genuine
Yeah.
positivity? Is it?
No, no,
Are you
I think you're
genuinely
right.
positive in yourself? If you're, sorry, I'm just going to open a beer and it's going to fizz, and that's terrible for the audio. Um, if you're literally any size, like any size imaginable, and your counter argument to becoming that size is, well, I'm in a great mindset and I'm body positive. Do we think that that's genuine, or do we think that that's just hiding behind the way that society is formed? That, well, you can't criticize me for this now because it's not woke. It's not woke to have an opinion on someone's appearance. Not
So
that
then
I.
but then it comes into the like you're saying it. Then you're peddling that message in the fear that you'll be cancelled by others, and that's not genuine. That's not a genuine message. Then, and it's then built upon completely false pretenses.
Yeah,
And
and
And one example I was going to make around body positivity and the message, and like one of the, I think, most famous examples. So there's a singer, Demi Lovato. I'm sure you're probably aware of who she is, but
Yeah, yeah.
she's a popular singer out in the States, and she gained a lot of weight, and then, well, not a lot, to be honest. She, like, it was barely that much at all, and then people started criticizing her online, led to lots of mental health issues, and then as a result, kind of came out and said, well, actually, I don't care what anyone says, because as long as I love myself, like, that's the most important thing. I thought, what a fantastic message. Like, that, people stepping up like that where it's appropriate, and
Yeah,
saying, you should accept yourself, even if, because weight will always fluctuate throughout your life as well, and it's never going to be consistent. You can tear yourself apart worrying about how you look. So as long as you are fundamentally happy with yourself, that's what's most important. I think going forward, the thing is, around the point around body positivity, there needs to have a little bit of an asterisk with it, or actually, probably the main part of the message needs to be, as long as it's healthy.
yeah. Be realistic. Set yourself realistic goals for your height, your age, your body type. And you know, be be realistic with yourself about what's possible. But I agree with you. I think it has to be within reason. At the point in anything else in life, we have warnings all over stuff. We talk to people about drugs. We talk to people about drink. We talk to people about smoking. Um, we need to have a better handle on what people are putting in their bodies. And I don't think
Yeah,
that government legislation with things like labeling and stuff like that has gone far enough in the past.
yeah. I think as well, we need to also not be scared to have these kind of conversations with each other, because I think weight, and speaking from personal experience as well, when I was over, I was up to 21 and a half stone at my heaviest
Oh wow.
during placement year. That's a big boy, right? And
Mm,
whenever my parents tried to have that conversation about weight, I used to get so defensive, because you know that it's true, but it's also really difficult to change.
mm,
But I think people, I mean, nowadays, I think this has happened over time. As a society, we like to travel the road most traveled by, and take the path of least resistance. And the reason why we will be so defensive is because you're almost, by admitting that you might need to lose some weight, you're then saying, I've now got a journey ahead of me that requires a lot of hard work, because it means you're making sacrifices both in the kitchen from a diet perspective and changing things there, which often can require effort and hard work, but also to go and exercise, which again requires hard work, and people don't want to do that. So I think that's also
What
intrinsically
changed
linked
for you
in.
though at that point?
It was, well, there was a few things. Um, One was that it was impacting my rugby, and I wasn't as dynamic anymore around the pitch, which was noticeable. And also, it was probably slight embarrassment to myself, as to I'd been, a high level athlete before, and I was operating at such a level, and it was something that I was no longer able to replicate. And my clothes were super tight. I couldn't fit in. I think I was like size 42 to 44 short,
Oh
which,
wow.
like, I'm now 38, and that's comfortable for me. I was 44, and like my legs were really, like, they were tight around my thighs, and yeah, and then from then on, I was like, okay, this is bullshit. This is not me. And to be fair, at the time, I was undergoing quite a lot of, like, self-destructive behavior, and like a lot of that was to do with alcohol, and just doing a lot of activities that just weren't really me. And I think I'd lost myself for a little while, and then I found what really made me happy, and what really made me happy was getting on that pitch, socializing with mates, and feeling healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but everyone has their own path. So what might be true for me, but I think the I suppose the summary is, it's kind of like, I think we need to have the hard conversations with each other. I think the body positive body oh, bloody hell, why are we struggling with this? Body positivity message is an incredibly positive one, and a progressive one. However, it
Mm,
needs to be framed in the right way. It has to be, and it has to be health first, before superficial. And I think if we can strike that right balance, then that's beautiful, because I want to live in a world where everyone is happy in their own skin and happy with the way they look.
Definitely.
That's a beautiful end goal. But I will also want to live in a world where everyone's healthy.
Absolutely.
Happy with that conclusion?
I'm more than happy.
Boom. All right. On to number 2. So, kind of linked to the last point, cancel culture. Now, this seems to be a movement that's a lot more prevalent now, and it has been over the last, I want to say, 24 to 36 months. It seems to be coming from moral elitism stemming from social media, and it just feels like, I mean, there are so many popular examples of celebrities now being cancelled because of things that they've done in the past. And how mad is it now that we've got people trawling through like decades of tweets and footage and things that people have done when they're a completely different person,
Yeah.
when they're going through completely different things in their life, when the social and political climate is different. And people are dragging things up now and trying to get them cancelled today
Mm.
for things that they, I mean, and this, the reason why this is getting kind of grouped together in the millennial sentiment that I mentioned at the start. And I know that it's by no means solely millennials that are doing this, but I think it's a lot more prevalent
That's
amongst
a
our
lot of traffic
generation.
they're driving, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I just think that they are completely just trying to cancel anyone that's ever said anything offensive ever,
Yeah.
and not taking into the context that people make mistakes. They grow as humans. They learn, because everyone makes mistakes. I will literally battle
Mm.
to the hilt with anyone that's said that they have never made a mistake, because that's what it feels like. Now, if you make one mistake, no matter when you've made it, you're cancelled. Boom, gone. Career ruined.
I think it's a difficult line to draw. I I was kind of thinking about this last night, and I felt like there was probably two sides to this. The first side being that I almost think like cancel culture has been used to water down like actual crime. So celebrities have gone out, committed actual physical crimes, and then cancel culture has taken to social media, and it's almost downplayed the criminal element of it. So someone has probably got away with committing some form of crime because of the heat and the pressure on them from a social perspective, and then they've just slinked off into the night. And then I thought about it from the other side, where, like you just said there, that people are doing quite menial things or things that have happened, decades ago that at the time were culturally accepted. That since we've developed as a society and we've moved to a point where we know that things aren't acceptable or things have become unacceptable, and now all of a sudden these people are paying for those things 10, 15, 20 years on. So I think as much as I hate cancel culture, the court of public opinion should not be on social media. Social media should not be somewhere that you go to outwardly criticize and slant and slate. Social media is a really powerful platform for people like ourselves, like the little guy, the little girl, to go out and tell a story. And I think that it's really important that we we almost keep the validity of the stories by not trying to turn on any single person who's done anything. It's so much less powerful to see about a celebrity that's committed an historic sexual crime or a celebrity that's been abusive in their past if we're faced every day by another celebrity we shouldn't be listening to or watching for something else. So I think the point that I wanted to make on this, and I'll give it back to you in a second, and you can let me know what you think, is that you know there's there are some genuine reasons, there are some genuine bad people out there that should be held accountable for their actions. Is the best method of holding them accountable for their actions social media? I can accept that in some circumstances it is, because you maybe wouldn't be heard without that kind of social pressure. But it just feels to me like the volume of this right now is putting us in a really dangerous place where real victims and real people will almost not be heard. And
Mate,
that's the
that's
thing,
literally, mate, that's genuinely the most important thing from it, I think.
massively.
Going back to what you said around, there are celebrities and stuff who've committed crimes, and one, well, so for people that have committed genuine crimes, then I have no problem with cancel culture, because as long as if there's proof and evidence that they've done something wrong, so like Harvey Weinstein and the Me
Yeah.
Too movement and outing these paedophiles and sexual like predators and all that kind of stuff, I have no problem, obviously, with people being outed for actual criminal offences that they've committed. Those people deserve to get what's coming to them. At the same time, there should not be a trial by social media
By
where,
public opinion. Yeah.
well, with the social media should not be a temperature for, or like should be the casting vote as to where that person's life goes next, because it's like that old adage, everyone's got opinions are like arseholes, everyone's got one. Like it it's ridiculous, the rubbish that you see on there, and it, like, social media goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. Together we can do some unbelievable things, but also together there are some atrocious things that happen online. And so the fact that like that we now seem to be moving in herds in this mob mentality, taking down one person to the next, and it's like you make one slip up now and you're gone like dust. One, I think the most relevant examples I can think of, just because this is like a field that's kind of known to me a bit more,
Mm.
is when I remember Owen Farrell got red carded in a game for making a high tackle, um, and he just got completely chastised, and people are saying like he should be banned for life and like banned for years, and this is not acceptable, and like calling for his head, essentially. The amount of abuse that he's getting as well for making a mistake in a rugby game where you've got like milliseconds to react to what someone's doing. And it's just insane. Like people are taking the context away from it. It's one of I think one of the most widespread known examples of cancel culture of recent years was Kevin Hart and the Oscars.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if do you remember this example? I think
I do. Yeah.
in a stand-up set, I think he was alleged to have made, and I think he did make homophobic jokes at the time. But it was also at a time where that behaviour was potentially deemed more acceptable. Now, of course, it doesn't make it acceptable now, and I think he apologised it multiple times. He apologised for it multiple times in his career before he was supposed to present the Oscars. And then just because he was about to present the Oscars, someone's gone digging through the archives, brought up something that was deemed not acceptable in this day and age, and decided to discredit him because of that. Now, as a consequence, I think the I can't remember. I think I don't know who even awards the presenting of the Oscars, but they kind of fired him, and then there was like a bit of backlash against them firing him. So then they tried to
Yeah.
hire him back, and then he just walked away from it because he was like, "Oh, this is bullshit. Like I'm not doing it because I can't believe that this has been the reaction after something that I've learned, I've grown from over years and years of being more knowledgeable about social issues in that space." And it just seems crazy to me that in our society now, we now have no room for mistakes,
Mm.
especially when you think about everyone grows up in a different way and will be exposed to different areas of life, a lot more or less than others. And if you've not come from it feels like if you've not come from a certain creed or background now,
Mm.
and you don't believe the same as the general consensus, and you
Yeah.
take a stand against it, or you say something that's contrary to popular opinion, then you're done. And that for me is such a dangerous place to be in, because how much scope then does that actually leave us to have freedom of speech and be able to say things, or even the ability to make mistakes? It feels really scary, and I was genuinely thinking, like, is it going to get to a point where all of our entertainment, our society will be just fearful
Yeah.
of anything that they do? And then what place does that put us in? Just to completely save, I have to abide by this because I'm petrified if I say something, if I don't react how the person next to me wants me to react, then they can cancel me, and then no one wants to be my friend. And mate, it's mind boggling. I think
Yeah.
one of the most destructive things that has come about in the last, well, ever.
There's a couple of examples that really sprung to mind for me. To go back to the kind of point that I made around there being kind of two sides to this, was the two that really stood out for me, as you've just said there, was from a criminal perspective, was like Kevin. I don't know if you remember the Kevin Spacey stuff,
Mm.
and
I was
like,
going to mention that. Yeah.
yeah, and how Kevin Spacey basically used the allegations that he'd sexually assaulted a 14-year-old boy to come out as gay. And and again, like, please don't take this as gospel, because I'm in no way well read on this subject. But as far as I know, there's never been any kind of charges brought to him. He's never had to face any kind of criminal prosecution for this. This has just been this kind of court of public opinion where Kevin Spacey was allowed to walk away from all of the projects that he had going on, all of the TV, and basically use this as a platform to say, "Hey, you know what, guys? Actually, I'm gay." And that's not the point, Kevin. The point was that you've done something with someone who is underage. So it felt like almost this cancel culture became a vehicle to move away from the point, because with everything that was going on, we kind of got away from the point, which was this guy had gone out and committed a crime. Do you know what I mean? Like, it almost lessens the argument in that sense.
Yeah. This was quite a unique example, and
Mm,
I think, um, see, this is the thing. I don't want to say anything that's like too slanderous, because I don't know of the evidence that was actually brought against. Like, I don't know what's happened here. You know, to an nth degree, but by coming out as gay at the same time as a scandal comes out against you, you're then so then any time that someone says anything negative against Kevin Spacey, someone who's maybe more irrationally minded might say, "Oh, is it because he's gay?" And then like that in itself now has become a cancel, or something worth cancelling over. If you then go against someone in a homophobic way, then you're again done. So it was like, well, can I criticize this person for what they've done
yeah,
because they're a
without
sexual predator?
almost appearing homophobic, which
Well, yeah,
is
this is the
so.
thing. It's like it's like everyone is out for each other. Everyone's like constantly now trying to be offended on behalf of other people. Everyone's like constantly trying to police what each other can say. And then is that getting in the way of us holding people accountable for actual true shit that they're doing? Because there's other agendas getting in the way. It's like, but this is the whole danger about the trial of social media. This is what I'm talking about. Everyone's just making so much noise, and it's like, no, 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 shut up. Like, everyone, this is not like, you can have an opinion on it, of course you can, but when you're calling for people's heads, like, that's not your job. Like, the people that are, and I suppose maybe the reason why cancel culture has come about is because people have lost faith in the systems that have been put in place to police this kind of thing, to actually do
Probably,
their
yeah.
job properly.
I
That's
think that
that's probably where it's come from.
the, the other one I wanted to just quickly mention, I tried to think about, like, from both sides of it, and was Aziz Ansari, who's done Parks and Rec. And the reason I kind of remembered it was because I watched a show he did called Master of None. I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix. It's like
I've heard of it.
fantastic.
I've never
Yeah,
saw it.
he's brilliant. But he again kind of got caught up. I think, I can't remember when it was, maybe 2018, 2019. He got caught in allegations of sexual misconduct. But effectively, I think all that he'd done, and I say that all that he'd done, please don't take that as all that he'd done is like it's acceptable. But from my understanding of that situation was, he'd been a bit of a prick, and the guy's a Hollywood star, and he'd been slightly misogynistic, maybe slightly sexually explicit on a date with a girl.
Right.
And it almost felt like, because he was on the crest of the wave of where we were with this cancel culture stuff, that he got swept up in it. And the only reason I thought of it was because I absolutely loved that show, Master of None, and it like disappeared off the face of the earth. And you start looking into where it's gone. And as much as I don't condone men being misogynistic pigs, because that's no way for any man to react, but is a guy that's a comedian that's again like building a career, that's gone out, does he deserve to be tarred with the same brush as Harvey Weinstein for having one bad? You don't know the context. Maybe he's had too much to drink. I'm implying context here, and I don't mean to if it's in an offensive way, but it's a single date. It's a single accusation of a single date where some guy has sat down at a bar and said some things to a girl that she's not liked. I think most men can relate to that in some form, or you know,
Well,
and
that I mean, that's I guess that's probably an issue in itself. Yeah, I think the the issue where it arises with the celebrity landscape is that some people who are the accusers, it can be framed that they've got so much to gain
yeah,
by publishing that story. Um, it's really difficult because I mean, we're getting into really like dodgy
we're
ground
getting into
around.
murky water here, and I didn't mean to
Yeah,
make it murky, but I just
no,
think,
no, no. It's
oh,
fine. I just think around this like sexual assault like realm, it's it's really difficult because it's so difficult to ever um, provide any evidence against, and you have to take people by their word and what their experience have been, and you have to. There has to be like a pattern for any person's then story to carry any weight, which
mm,
I mean, it's such a
I
difficult
think it's so
thing
hard for
to
someone to make a
narrate.
singular mistake like that. If we're talking about, as we said at the top of this topic, have we not all made mistakes in our life? Does being a celebrity put you in the court of public opinion to the point where a singular mistake is enough to ruin someone's career? Some might say
There's
yes.
levels of mistake. There's levels of mistake, isn't
Yeah.
there? Because if you commit a crime against someone, but that's a mistake. You've still committed a crime, but there's committing that kind of mistake which is never acceptable because you've committed a fucking crime. But then there's making a mistake where like you may have said something that's completely out of character, or you haven't thought before you spoke, but it's been recorded on video, or you've made one slip up, or you've put across one opinion that's not you know not who you are, but it massively is like out of touch or strikes the wrong chord, and then because of that one slip up, you are then done. And I think like let's separate the kind of sexual allegations and stuff like that because I think that's way more murky water, and I think that's something that's never acceptable. Like if you were to make a mistake and you've genuinely gone and committed that kind of thing, then that is something that like that's one and done. But with other stuff where it's just like things that you say or you might have like been caught slipping in some kind of way, then and if you then get if people are calling for your head after that one mistake, I just think that's wrong because everyone makes mistakes and says things that they don't mean and will and say things that will hurt and be offensive to other people. But it doesn't mean that that's who you are. It doesn't mean that you can't learn from it. It doesn't mean that you can't grow as an individual and go get past that. So that and also around like these public figures, there seems to be just this separation between the artist and the content. Like what I mean by that is around things like especially with comedians. I think comedians have come under so much fire recently because the content that they say is a joke. It's meant to be provocative. If you are buying tickets or you're going to engage with a comedian, you know that there's the potential that they're going to say something that out of context may sound terrible, but it's a joke. Like it's supposed to provoke that kind of reaction. People are taking these things out of context and twisting them to their narrative so that they can then make a case because they're woke and they're trying
Yeah.
to prove some kind of point and that's the problem. There needs to be that kind of realization that there's a difference between the actual artist and the content that they're providing
I think
because
there has to be a market for this for it to land. I think maybe typically, I mean, I use the example maybe of like a Frankie Boyle. I remember Frankie Boyle being on the BBC a lot in like, oh God, when was that? Was that like a decade ago when he was like really at
probably early 2000s, wasn't it?
yeah, and I think he was probably at the peak of his powers back then, and through no fault of his own. I mean, he seems like a pretty good guy. I don't dislike his comedy. I remember at the time finding some of the stuff pretty funny, but some of it was pretty, close to what I think most people would find acceptable. And then the guys kind of faded into insignificance. I guess largely because that style of comedy has got to a point where the market has shrank for it, and I think maybe that's the ultimate sort of litmus test for this stuff is when your comedy becomes too acidic for society, people stop buying the tickets, and you stop
Has it? But this is the
to
thing. Has it though? Has it become too acidic for society, or is it the people that are? And it's usually the people that have got a problem with it
mm,
who are the noisiest,
yeah,
right? Is it the people that are making the most noise who are pressuring these like arenas and these comedy stores to never book these comedians because they're worried about reputational damage because of what people say online now?
maybe.
It's like for me, like there's still very much a market out there for Frankie Boyle's comedy like for comedians like Jimmy
But
Carr
yeah,
who like skirt on the side of like well some of their jokes like are quite frankly horrendous, but like it's the people that are making the most noise and you know like and this is the whole issue. It's the gang culture. It's the mob mentality that will take down anything in their path that even remotely doesn't identify or agree with this social wokeness that seems to be coming through with our generation, and just tearing it down in their path
but
because it's something they don't agree with.
this is what we asked for, right? Was this platform to, completely and freely speak our minds and share our opinions. So it probably speaks to a broader issue with social media. I don't remember. This is completely off topic, but when we were talking about maybe having a dislike button, like I can show you that I like something, but I can also show you that I dislike something. And everyone was like, "We can't do that." That's got negative connotations in terms of someone sharing their opinions. And it's like, but if you want to speak so freely, that I can take offense to it, I kind of want to be able to dislike your opinions. And maybe that's what it comes back to. We've created this monster now within social media, and that's allowed for cancel culture because it just allows people to completely speak their mind as freely as they like. I saw Rachel Riley is in court this week for like a defamation of character against some tweets that she made. I won't go into what the tweets are. You can Google it if you want to go into it because it's political and there's no space for that here. Um, but yeah, like the idea that she could tweet something, someone's tweeted her back, she doesn't like it, so she's going to pull them up on it. Well, it's kind of the beast that we've created, hasn't it? If you tweet something, I'm
Yeah,
probably going to tweet you back. If you don't like it, you're probably going to have to live with it.
yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know where we go from here. I just had flashbacks. Do you remember yet an app called Yik Yak?
Oh yeah, where did we have that?
Mate,
What did we have that for?
that was a flash that went because I think it actually got taken down because it had like just so many counts of bullying and it was really prevalent at uni. Like I remember uni like when that first came out at Loughborough, people were just
Yeah, it
constantly
was
on that.
anonymous. Was it the anonymous posting thing,
It was
wasn't it?
it was anonymous, and then you could, like, vote it up, and then if it got, like, 5 downvotes, then it was deleted, but then, like, the more popular it was, the more people that would see it, and then, like and it was all about locality, so you'd comment on things that were happening local to you, so that's why it was massive amongst uni. Now, the problem was that did have massive bullying problems. Like there were people getting singled out, and then collectively everyone coming together and think like say, oh, like the bloke that's always known to do like pick his nose in the middle of the student union, like stupid example, but then loads of upvotes taking the piss out of him. Then that would have negative effects, obviously, on them. Um, so that's why it got disbanded. But I was wondering whether there's anything there for the future to say, like, if there is I mean, YouTube have it, don't they, in terms of the like and dislike button?
Like, yeah.
I don't
I
know
mean,
what.
YouTube is it. I mean, we can go into. I don't know if you followed much of that. I mean, I don't follow it closely, but James Charles, is it? He's yeah,
There's I know there's loads of weird allegations
he's done
about
some
what
pretty sketchy stuff. I think David Dobrik is on a bit of a hiatus from the whole YouTube thing because again, he's done some
Where
largely
he got
sketchy stuff.
associated with people, yeah. And then there's like there's that other guy, Sean something.
So we coming
Um,
back to that initial point is like uh, okay, cancel culture largely. We're against, I think from what we're saying, we're kind of against the idea of cancel culture, but we're for the prosecution of people who have done something criminally bad. David Dobrik, it's not enough not to post on your YouTube channel for 3 months because you enabled someone to rape someone else. Like,
I mean, I don't know
but you know,
the
like
I don't know
like,
the evidence or like
yeah,
whatever behind that. But
put something in
this
for
is
your
the
lawyers. Like, put a pause here for the lawyer to say.
thing.
But I think yeah,
Yeah,
largely,
this is the thing, right? I, so cancel culture for me overall is shit. Like I don't agree with it. Like I agree with people having an opinion, of course I do. I don't agree with this mob mentality where we're just tearing down anything that doesn't identify with what we believe in because we need to have people challenging each other's opinions and beliefs in order to actually have any progressiveness. Like if you have everyone singing off the same hymn sheet the whole time, singing fucking kumbaya, then we're never going to go anywhere because it's just going to be a shit place to live and we're all going to be agreeing and it will be boring as anything. Now, obviously, with the criminal stuff, yes, send them down. Like if there's evidence, but that needs to be left to the forces and the powers that be. The powers that be need to be called into account way more, and we need to hold them accountable to do their job properly. But it's not trial by social media is bad, and the problem is like you've mentioned before, when it comes to actually um, rallying together to make an impact for issues that matter and to arrange boycotts of kind of brands who are like, let's say for instance, like abusing their employees out in like kind of the Far East, which we know has been happening with some of these kind of Fortune 500 companies. When it comes to the organized protests of things that are you know genuine and things that need changing, the cancel culture undermines that whole thing because it means like you're seeing people get cancelled so regularly now, then there's just going to be apathy for any kind of movement because no one's going to care. You see like people getting cancelled every bloody week and you're thinking, oh, like there's another thing now that I can't enjoy, or I have to read up on about this, and it's like enough. Let's everyone need everyone needs to have their opinion, and I think there needs to be a freedom of information, of course, to make your own mind up. But like this mob herd mentality, just tear anything down that doesn't agree to social wokeness in inverted commas is bullshit. It for me, it needs to stop.
we're all people at the end of the day. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's people.
Exactly. We're all people that make mistakes. Now, obviously, like mistakes, as we've said, some are more heinous than others. But you know, who are you realistically to judge? Who is anyone to judge anyone else? We're all just trying to get by in the world, and for me, I've always said, as long as you're not infringing on anyone else's free will and you're trying to make
Yeah.
a positive impact on the world, then crack on. Like, just be a good person, and if someone has slipped up, if they've said something that they'll maybe later regret, then we have to allow growth to have to allow room for growth, make mistakes to happen. And there's a wicked book on this called Black Box Thinking, called from Matthew Syed. He talks all about how, as a society and culturally, we should be more accepting and encourage mistakes more often, so that we can learn and grow. Which I think is a really interesting
We talk about
mindset.
that a lot in business now, don't we? Around sort
Definitely.
of making mistakes to progress.
To go forward. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
massively.
think that's the only way. We've got to try things, and you got to say things, and sometimes they it might not work, but then you grow as people. I mean, some of the things that I was doing and saying 10 years ago, of course, like I wouldn't do the same thing now, but it's because I've grown up and
So we
changed as an
think
individual, and you learn from things, you learn from fuck ups that you do and say. So
are we saying
yeah,
empathise with people, not empathise with people that have done something that requires them being cancelled, but don't be so quick to judge. Walk a
yeah,
mile in someone else's shoes, show a little bit of empathy. It's very easy when you're sitting the other side of a screen to make a snap judgment, make an opinion, and speak your mind truly, but put yourself in that other person's opinion. And some heinous things go on online, and we know they do. And that's not a condoning of anything like that. But before people are so quick to act, I think, again, going back to something we started the top of the podcast with, it's like get a little bit of perspective in your life, stand
Yeah.
back from a situation, think
You
about
really do. Yeah.
what could be affecting someone, not just what could be affecting someone on a personal level. Take that step back, understand some of the variables going on in their lives. What could they be going through? Why would they have these opinions? How, and then try and put something out there into the ether, if you're going to use the internet, that is in some way positive to drive progression, rather than,
Yeah.
if it comes back to the whole, eye for an eye and the whole world's blind. If we just spend our time persecuting people for every mistake they make, then there's not going to be a lot of people left in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe spend your
Yeah.
time educating them.
Well, mate, like something that you said, which is brilliant, and something that I massively is context is important.
Hugely.
Context is the most important thing, and so yeah, just remembering to take that into account. But at the end of the day, you just got to question what cancelling people actually achieves. It,
Absolutely.
if you just get rid of the problem, does it mean that someone else has learned something from? It just means that don't it doesn't. It just means don't do what that person did. But it doesn't. It doesn't educate us to why. It doesn't educate us to well, they've said that thing and that's bad. But this is the reason why, and this is how we grow as people together going forward. And there isn't that mentality. I hope in time that changes. But whilst there's still the ability to move on social media as we do now, it's not going to change in its current capacity. But we'll see, brother. But yeah, I mean, so yes, on to the next point around what I've termed as guerrilla veganism, which seems to be the newest trend or the newest, I suppose, ideology to identify with. And right, so this comes from having family members that have been vegan over the last 5 years. I am currently going through, undergoing vegetarianism
Yeah.
myself now. It doesn't mean that I'm never going to eat meat again, but it's stemmed from an environmental and ethical point of view that why I'm going about it. But what I wanted to kind of explore was that is it right to be looking through ingredients of a particular food like source or substance or whatever, something you're eating, and looking to see if it contains 0.01% milk powder, pasteurized milk, or whatever. Like, is it healthy for us to do that? And then is it, and this is onto the main point, should we or be accepting of those who are looking to force their nutritional decisions around veganism, vegetarianism down people's throat? Like,
Yeah.
for me, it's a very personal decision and something that you need to come to on your own as to how much you want to take part in the meat industry and all of that jazz. But I will never like go to someone and go, "Oh, you're wrong. Oh, you're killing animals. Like you feel bad, guilt tripping them, all of that kind of stuff." Because it's your own bloody disease. I mean, you've gone through your stints of like. I mean, you were vegan right at the time, and then kind of
Yeah, I can
have
probably talk
come
about
back from that slightly. But
yeah, I can probably talk about from personal experiences. I, I hate to say this, and this is going to make me sound so fickle, but I think the main driving force in me going vegan initially was I met a girl who was vegan. And I, as you do in most relationships, I guess when you meet someone and they have a specific way of thinking or specific things that are important to them, they become important to you. And certainly that, I mean, that relationship died off long before I ever went back to eating meat. But yeah, I initially it was kind of, getting to know someone, and understanding what was important to them. And once I'd kind of peeked behind the curtain, so to speak, started to understand, similar to what you've said, from an environmental standpoint and also ethically, in terms of the way that I felt about meat production and things like that. And that really drove me to make that initial change. And yeah, I was vegetarian. Well, I was vegan for about, I think, probably 6 to 8 months. Really, really struggled at the time. I was at university. Um, I've always struggled with my weight. Probably should have spoke about this earlier on, but always been on the slender side. So when you kind of remove that and you remove the ease of eating meat and having an unrestricted diet, I think I really, really struggled to maintain a body weight as a vegan. And that led me to kind of introduce things into my diet again. I do eat, and I have done over the last few years, I've eaten a lot of eggs. So yeah, I could never really get to that kind of full vegan state. But yeah, went a long time without eating meat, and largely didn't miss it. And I think the real turning point for me was I started eating meat um, 3 4 months ago now. Largely, it's been when I'm out as a meal, as something to enjoy, as a treat. Around the house, still, I'm largely vegetarian. If I'm making, you know, spag bowls, chilies, stuff like that, I'll always look to a meat alternative before I'll go to meat. But I think for me, it was just about striking up that balance that works for my lifestyle. And yeah, I don't know, like horses for courses is a turn of phrase I'll always come back to. Never really judged anyone for their way of living or what suited them. For me right now, having meat back in my diet suits what I'm doing, especially now we can go back out and enjoy meals and stuff like that.
Mm.
I still have a real issue with anything that requires some like serious cutting. If it's a real hunk of meat, still gets me. Like, and I've still not really dove back into stuff like chicken breast, stuff like that.
Yeah.
For me, mainly it's been sort of like cured meat, sausages, bacon, stuff that's a little bit more undescript in the way it looks. I'm still not back to those like big, like ribs or the big bones and like steaks
Yeah.
and chops. And I'm not sure that I ever will, but I'm certainly not going to put myself in a position where I'm persecuting myself for wanting it or for eating it. So,
Like a lot of, and I suppose that links into like a lot of people are trying to force across in terms of their opinion according
yeah,
to what other people eat, right? Because I think there's a lot of that, and I just think there needs to be more preaching around sustainable eating
yeah,
rather than and 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 that means like it doesn't mean everyone having to quit meat teetotal, and if you do, then you're gonna have like loads of people guilt tripping at you about your eating. It's like, okay, maybe I just don't eat meat every meal. Maybe I do one. I think it was like we could cut emission. I think 1 billion tons of emissions in this country if everyone just didn't eat meat for 1 day a week.
yeah.
Like, how easy would that be? And and so,
One of the things
like,
I got
however
really
you,
fed up with, and I don't know, if you remember this, when we'd been eating out together and stuff, especially at work through like business functions where maybe, the kind of like the spread or, what was being put out wasn't always vegetarian friendly. So I think for me, it became at a point where I was putting myself almost at a disadvantage. Do you know what I mean? Like it became not too difficult because that almost says that, but do you understand what I'm saying? It became
yeah,
a bit of a chore.
there's practical implications to that kind of lifestyle, because it means that you're always having to. I think that there might be a tendency to feel obstructive and difficult. Like for me, my I'm still living at home, and whenever we're cooking a meal, it's always got to be now like one meal for me and one meal for everyone else. And I feel bad about that, because if I'm not around, and sometimes like I'll have meals cooked for me because I'm out training, or it just works in that way where I'm not about to do it, and I feel bad because I'm like, oh well, because of what I believe now, other people are having to like bend around it. So I understand the motivation behind like not wanting to always have to be vegetarian. Like, it does give you more flexibility when you
You've
can
gone
eat meat.
lockdown veggie, right?
Yeah. So, but But I think for me, I mean, you must have encountered people in the past who are just trying to fall. And also,
Absolutely.
I feel like it's just a shit point of conversation. Like, do you not agree when people? It's
Someone
that old
tells you
joke.
they're vegan.
It's all it's like, how do you know if a person's vegan? He'll tell you within 10 seconds of meeting you. Like, it's that old thing, and especially at the moment because it's so hip and trendy that people want to force their vegetarianism and veganism upon you by any means necessary. And then I remember at a time, I hope my brother doesn't mind me mentioning it, but I'm going to do it anyway. There was a time where he was going out with this girl during uni, and the pair of them together were just complete nightmares around food. Like every single meal was like a whole discussion about the ethics of food and
Yeah,
the ethics of meat, and they're looking through every single bit of ingredients that's going into food that my mum was cooking, by the way, which pissed me off like on a separate point because I was just like, I'll just stop being dickheads. And I was just like, can we just not? Like, can there just be some kind of balance? Now, if you want to go complete teetotal, then that's your prerogative, of course. But if you're going to do that, then sort of like sort yourself out, and don't make other people completely bend to your will because of something that you want to do. And I think that maybe speaks to slight selfishness of our generation, and also
hugely.
how we've had it quite easy because in our parents' generations and the generations before that and they've gone before them,
Mm.
they would have just had to have eaten what was on their plate.
Get
Well,
what you're
in
given.
this particular, in this particular example of eating food, but just in general, I know that the general perception of our generation is that we are so much softer. And like, can you imagine in my dad's generation, he goes, yeah, he's going into like his girlfriend's parents' kitchen and starts reading things on the box to see if they've got 0.01% of milk in. I was like, are you for real? Like, get crack on with what you've been given. Like, don't. Honestly, it was just from a cultural perspective, I'm kind of like, you can't just forced shit upon you. Now it's up to the host to be like, accommodating for
Yeah,
your specific dietary needs, and of course, in general, my house has always been one that's willing to do that. But I just think it's the problem with the attitude that I've got in that everyone. I think people go around now thinking that everyone else should bend to your will purely because it's what I believe in, so I'm right. So you have to bend to it.
yeah. I think there's become a real rise in like vegan products. I think vegan food, especially when I was not so much now, but when I was living in Manchester, I was in the middle of Manchester. You could eat three really good square vegan meals a day, and not just like from restaurant vegan meals, but you could like bounce into your local M&S or your local Tesco and get a real good meal deal, or you could get something of a decent quality that you were happy with, that was tasty, that was fulfilling, that was good, and not maybe need to give it a great deal of thought. So maybe we're just going to get to a point in society now where vegan alternatives or vegan products just become as commonplace as others. So it becomes less of a situation where you need to think about, does this contain this or does this contain that? Because there's going to be such a market for vegan foods that we're going to end up with a great deal of choice, and hopefully that choice drives down the price and it means that it's not at a price premium, and people are able
Yeah,
to
I
make
mean,
those selections. But I agree with you. Like I'm all for live and let live, flexibility. Like don't. Again, if I'd have probably heard myself say this 12 months ago, I'd been like, "You absolute turncoat." But now, because you do, I think when you're in something, you're like, "Well, what does flexitarian mean?" It always used to really annoy me when people used to say, "Well, I smoke when I've had a drink." I used to be
well,
like, "Well, that's not really
right.
smoking, is it? Like, you're not really addicted to it." And I think now, sounding the way I sound, I would annoy myself 12 months ago being a vegetarian, going, "Well,
But mate,
it's not going to kill you." But
yeah, but this is the thing. This is the thing. Like, and this is actually leads me beautifully onto the last point that I was going to raise is that people now only feel comfortable with being like alt right
oh
or alt
yeah,
left of a
we're so
certain scenario.
polarizing.
It's like you can't exist in the middle anymore. There's no room for. compromise or sitting on the fence or balance. It's like, no, no, no. You either believe in this or you don't. Otherwise, I can't accept you. Or like, it's either you're vegetarian or you're not. It's like, no, that's not. That's not.
Can you
That's
have a
not how it
social
works.
conscience while still making decisions that, I mean, there's a very fine line. Does every decision that you make need to be 100% driven by your social conscience? You know, we've both got cars. We both drive. Both used to drive our cars pretty heavily, right, for work. Like we both, buy a lot of, I don't know, sort of high street-ish clothes. You know, we're definitely not living this, whiter than white moral
Eco life.
lifestyle, but we're
Yeah.
both definitely informed enough about the decisions we make that it does play a part. You know, we probably wouldn't buy into, the really kind of fast fashion houses. We wouldn't buy a car that was, we wouldn't be driving around in Hummers that were ridiculously environmentally unfriendly. So we're making these almost slightly informed decisions to try and, maybe not minimize our footprint, but get our footprint to a position where we feel that it's comfortable, that it's good for society, that it's in some way beneficial above average.
Yeah,
So
and I think there are some people that are really good in that space who come in with this like holier than thou mentality where you're like it's like, oh yeah, well, you're cutting down the amount of meat you're eating, but what are you doing in terms of travel? Because I
there's always
cycle and walk
something.
to everywhere. It's like, okay, great, but you also live in Clapham and everything is like on your doorstep anyway.
Yeah,
Or like, oh yeah, like, I mean, I only wear one pair of jeans every 10 years. It's just like, yeah, all right,
it's all
mate.
hemp.
Like
It's all made of hemp.
we're all
Just knitting your own tops.
yeah, we're all trying to do our best, and it's kind of just like, oh, yeah. So that annoys me. That kind of
Do you
looking
think this
down your
is a
nose. But
larger point that we're everything that we seem to have spoken about tonight? It's just a little bit like, let people, like,
we'll
guys,
let people
enjoy
live.
your
But
lives, but enjoy them within a moderate and within a moderate and sustainable way. Don't feel the need to feel pressure from anyone. Be yourself, as long as yourself is an all right human, and you'll be fine.
yeah, I just think there needs to be. So I think amongst our generation, it's a generation that likes to live fast, live now. Everything's like on their fingertips. Everything needs to be immediate right now. And um, through that, I think we've lost the traits of patience. We've lost the trait of think
Absolutely.
kind, be kind first. I think, and as much as people like to display their wokeness, I think it's a lot of fear out of being cancelled or being judged by your peers because you're not sharing something on social media, because you're not voicing an opinion about a particular issue, even if you're not that educated on it. I think it's how easy is it to share something on social media but not truly believe in it. Like I've been guilty of it in the past where I'm like I feel like, oh, I have to share something about this, otherwise like people are going to judge me and hate me. And I just think we need to, as a society, get back to think kind first, be happy in being yourself, be happy being healthy, make a positive impact on other people, share, like, spread positivity, work together, work as a collective for the betterment of society. Don't judge. Like, there's way too much judgment and comparison and competitiveness. I think that's only exacerbated by social media, which is why I'm trying to actively reduce the amount of time I'm on there, because social media, as much as it's a portal where we can connect and share experiences and all this kind of stuff, it's so dominating on our lives now, where we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people and we're also judging people all the time. And that's so unhealthy. And I think we've lost, as a society, I think we've lost some of the best bits of what humans are. And it's, when and we do see brief examples of how brilliant people can be when we all come together. um, One example that I've seen over the last couple of days is the people of Scotland rallying around police vans, saying, to I think a family of refugees that were being faced with exportation
Yes.
or deportation, saying, "Let our neighbours go." what a beautiful sentiment, and how brilliant, the power of people can be. That's something that I massively believe in, the power of people. I just think in day-to-day life we've slightly lost that, and I just think there needs to be more compassion, more understanding, and how we get there I don't know, but i I just think there needs to be more opening up of conversations like this, and actually have a look at yourself, do some soul searching. I'm constantly reflecting and seeing how I can be better as a person. And I know that, as much as we talk about so many issues on this podcast, and I talk a lot in general, but I'm definitely not like the finished article, and definitely not perfect. And I'm always, for the rest of my life, going to continue to grow, evolve, change opinion, like be more informed about loads of different issues. And I think the more that we can strive for that, I just hope that as a society we can make the world a better place than we found it. Because I just think at the minute some of the and you know what.
That was cute. You should have
The-
ended on that. That should have been. You've killed this now.
well, no, but I feel like it's worth mentioning that the topics that we've raised today are some of the, I think, things that are coming about from our generation that are impacting the world negatively.
Yeah.
But there's also loads of stuff that we're doing that's impacting the world positively, like through the sharing of information, and things like very topical this week, um, Mental Health Awareness Week. The things that our generation are doing in terms of the progressiveness around mental health. Now, there's still so much room to be done, but mental health was not really entering the general topic of conversation in society until, I want to say, the last 5 years, maybe 5 to 10 years, like really like the last five. But
In the same way
the
as
thing,
we're talking about this, like moderation, it's almost th- like even that, like this idea of, there are so many good things that have come from this generation, like being a lot more self-aware, being a lot more accepting. So if we go back to the initial point about body positivity, there's so much positivity that's come from that in terms of the way we, the average, individual accepts themselves, and they set out and they feel that. And then again with the cancel culture stuff, that this wokeness that is almost being weaponized now, without that, like you've just said there, like, do we get that kind of openness about mental health without that kind of woke-ish culture? I don't think we do. So, and the same with the veganism. Do we get to a potentially, a position where people feel this way about food and food production, and they really care about where things come from without it? So I don't know. Have we knitted some quite nice web throughout this, where actually what we're saying is this stuff is all good in a way. You know what I
well,
mean? Like, are we? Was this
there's a
deliberate? Did you not tell me this? And actually, it's some broader
no,
story.
I think that speaks to the nature of you, mate, where you're always looking to find the positive, which is very, very lovely. I think there are, like you say, brilliant things happening in society, and millennials and our generation, you know, on a to a large degree, are pushing forward society. But there are some things that we're doing that are holding us back. I think the biggest thing going forward, and something that I hope happens, and my hope for the future, is that, given that what we've experienced in the last 12 months, in that time can be taken away from us so quickly. And something that, at the top of this podcast, when we talked about making the most of our time, using it to reflect, are some of the tendencies and the traits that we possess, um, are they beneficial to ourselves? Are they beneficial to others? you know are we making the most out of our time here on earth? And if there, I think we need to ask ourselves the difficult questions, because it's often hard to do. But I think if we do that more often, and we really have a look at what we're putting out there into the world, I genuinely think if you put more positivity out into the world, it will come back to you. And I think if we do
Absolutely.
that on a more regular basis, then I am very optimistic about, especially where we're going to be heading at the back of this pandemic. I think there will be a surge in positivity and togetherness, and I hope that that lasts for forever.
I
But
don't know if you
it takes
encourage. Do
work.
you encourage listener feedback here? Do you encourage people to get involved?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm always really interested to see what people have to say. Now, lots of people message me directly, which is absolutely cool. Like, more than happy to have conversations with people. But if you want to post down in the Instagram post where I'm going to put this up, um, leave a review and post your comments on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this. I think I'll put this up on YouTube as well. This is all, a large part of the podcast is growing the conversation, growing this community, where we're kind of hungry for knowledge and conversation like this, and just spreading that positivity. So, of course,
I'm really interested to see what people think about this, because I think we're just two guys shooting the shit, sharing some opinions here.
yeah,
Leave a comment, let us know what you think. If there's something you think that we said that you don't agree with, let us know. Let us know in a constructive way, though. Going back to that other point, don't
yeah,
just don't just mug us off.
cancelled.
But
Uh,
if there's something that you don't think that we've said here that you think needs saying, say it, and then James will say it at a later date. Like, let's create some kind of dialogue here where, let's make this in some way a micro environment of what we're trying to make the macro, right? Let's try and make this a place where people can talk freely and can share experience and feel certain ways and talk about it, and then put that out into the macro, put that out into the real world and see what happens.
Look at that. Look at that. He's doing my job for me. Not even paying him. Amazing. Dude, I have really enjoyed our
It's been
chat
good
tonight. I
fun.
mean, I feel like, we always love shooting the breeze
This is just it
and
on a recording. We don't work now. We don't work together. We don't get to do this as regular as
I
I'd
know,
like.
I know.
Yeah.
We're always doing it when we're out and about, but it's always good to talk to you, brother. And yeah, I'll look to have this up at some point over the weekend. But yeah, man, I don't know whether you wanted to shout out or any like final remarks before we close. Was hang on, actually, no, we can make that more refined. Andrew Painter, how would you, as a person, like to be remembered?
Fuck me, that's a pretty profound question, isn't it? Mm. I think I just wanna. I think after this last year, after everything that's happened, and what's kind of been bubbling under the last year or so, I think I definitely just want to be remembered as not taking myself too seriously, enjoying life for what it is, and trying to make the best out of any situation I'm in, all while being pretty fucking cheeky and yeah, and enjoying it. So and I would say to anyone out there who listens to this, um, to follow that rule. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take a step back. If things feel too much for you right now, they're probably fucking not. It's probably the way you're looking at it, and you know, really, really take a look at yourself and think, and it's never as bad as it looks.
Love that. That's a beautiful place to end. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you are indeed still listening to this
It's
point,
been a bit of a
I.
fucking rant. We've got to edit this down from 9 hours.
But yeah, no, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back for a midweek remedy next week. Have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll see you later.